We begin this hour with breaking news in the Middle East. Hamas is confirming the assassination of one of its top leaders, Ismail Haniyeh. The militant group blames Israel and describes the strike as severe escalation, as vowing to retaliate. The Hamas leader and his bodyguard were both killed in Iran yesterday, just hours after attending the inauguration of the country's new president. The details around their deaths are still emerging, and no one has taken responsibility for the killing as of yet. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it is investigating. Journalist Sarah Coates is following the details for us from Tel Aviv. Sarah, I want to start by asking you, what are some of the implications, some of the details that are emerging around this attack?
Good morning, Abby. Well, this is still, of course, a developing story. What we can tell you is that Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas's Politburo, he was killed in the very early hours of this morning. He was staying in a special residence in Tehran with his bodyguard, who was also killed. This residence was for war veterans. Now, we do understand, according to numerous reports, that he was killed by an airborne missile that was actually fired from outside the country. Many reactions coming in. We've heard from Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He's come out to say that Israel has brought the severest punishment on itself with the assassination of Haniyeh on our land, vowing revenge. We've also heard from the armed wing of Hamas. It's come out to say that the killing of Haniyeh will have major repercussions, calling it a treacherous Zionist raid. Now, we still don't have any claim of responsibility from Israel, although the finger is being pointed at it. But Israel's government press office has posted an image on Facebook of Ismail Haniyeh with a stamp on his forehead saying eliminated. Now, we've also heard from the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant here in Israel, not specifically addressing this, but he came out a little earlier saying that Israel does not want a war, but is prepared for it. So, of course, this is a very worrying situation given the wider implications in the Middle East. And, of course, we do need to remember that Israel has claimed the killing of that senior Hezbollah leader in Beirut last night.
Sarah, what kind of impact could this assassination have on the ceasefire talks being mediated, obviously, by Egypt, Qatar, the United States, but the talks between Israel and Hamas leadership?
It certainly means that reaching a ceasefire and getting these 111 Israeli hostages out of Gaza will be far more difficult. It also really means that this war in Gaza could probably continue for some time. Now, Hamas will now have to elect a new Politburo leader. Still hasn't come out to speak about that yet, but that certainly is something that the group will be looking at. Now, we do know that the funeral for Ismail Haniyeh will be held tomorrow in Tehran. His body will then be transferred to Doha, but certainly a lot of worry, of course, from the families of these 111 people still being held in the Gaza Strip. They were very hopeful of a deal being reached soon. And it was Ismail Haniyeh, the Politburo chief, that was really instrumental on Hamas's side in these negotiations. So, of course, very worrying for the families of those people. Also very worrying for the people inside Gaza who desperately want a ceasefire 10 months into this war. Now, it also really raises serious questions about Iran's security, given that one of its allies really was assassinated, killed on its territory. Now, what we do know from the Israeli side is that the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he will hold a situational assessment a little later on today. There has been, at this hour, no change in the IDF Home Front Command to the people on the ground here in Israel, but the IDF has come out to say that it will update the public if indeed that changes.
Julia Chapman joining us now from London with more. Julia, we do want to hear about the reaction, the international reaction we're seeing this morning to this assassination.
Well, let's start with Iran, because that is where this attack took place, and it is something of a humiliation for Iran that under its protection, this Hamas leader was able to be assassinated. A bit embarrassing for the Revolutionary Guards, under whose protection he was as he visited the country for the inauguration of the new president. And that new president said that Iran will defend its territorial integrity and its dignity. One of his vice presidents said that Iran has no intention of escalating the situation at the moment. But of course, everyone is going to be watching how it responds. And we've also heard from the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and he has said that it is Tehran's duty to avenge Haniyeh's death. So certainly watching for what Iran's next steps are. So a mixed rhetoric from some of its senior figures. Other regional leaders have also been weighing in. We've heard from Egypt saying that this move shows no political will for de-escalation from Israel, which of course hasn't confirmed that it was responsible for this attack in any explicit terms. Qatar also heavily involved in mediation over the war in Gaza, saying how can that mediation succeed when one party assassinates the negotiator on the other side? We've seen China and Russia condemning this as well, warning about regional instability and what this could lead to. But when it comes to Israel's allies, they've been much quieter this morning. Of course, many of them waiting to hear what Israel has to say about this attack. But we have heard from U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who says that the U.S. is committed to turning down the temperature in the region.
I don't think war is inevitable. I maintain that. I think there's always room and opportunities for diplomacy, and I'd like to see parties pursue those opportunities.
Austin did go on to say that if Israel is attacked, the U.S. would step in to help defend it, but that was an eventuality he hoped could be avoided.
Julia, Haniyeh has been in exile since 2019 and has played a pivotal role, particularly in the ceasefire negotiations. What kind of impact would this assassination now have on those talks?
It certainly looks like those talks could be in jeopardy. We have heard tentative signs of progress, particularly from the U.S. negotiators who were meeting in Rome over the weekend with their counterparts. Slow progress over recent weeks and months, but there had been some indication that talks were moving in the right direction. As we've been hearing from some of the mediators, though, if this was indeed carried out by Israel, which looks incredibly likely, then it does suggest that negotiations are not a priority. This was a public-facing diplomat on behalf of Hamas, probably the easiest figure for Israel to target. It has so far struggled to manage to get the military leaders who are operating inside Gaza and have been since October 7th and before that, of course. So the talks are looking pretty fragile at the moment. There are also huge concerns about regional instability, what Iran is going to do next.
Julia Chapman reporting for us from London. Thanks for this, Julia.